following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of No Credentials Required, where you don't need a press pass to talk sports. We are presented by Belly Up Sports, an association locally in the 518 area code with Godzilla Media. To my right is my second chair, my broadcast partner, Dustin Henry. Dustin, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm hanging in there. It's Monday. It's a new week, and we're going to talk some sports. But before we do that, we also got some special guests as well. We're going to introduce them in just a moment or two. They'll be here for a little bit. But before we do that, we just want to remind you about our social media channels on Twitter, Instagram, and the seldomly used TikTok. It's at NoCredsREQ, Facebook.com/NoCredsREQ. On YouTube, it's YouTube.com/@NoCredsREQ. If you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, whether it be live or if it's on replay, why don't you go ahead and smash that like button, smash responsibly. On the podcast side, you can subscribe to the podcast on a myriad of podcast networks, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Google Play, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, wherever you podcast, you can subscribe to us there, rate and review 5 stars. 5 stars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars is the preferred amount of stars you can give us for a rating and a review. And if you review it, we might even read it on the air, no matter how awesome or how disgusting your comment is. And as always, since this is a listener and viewer engaged show, Dustin, I know you've been here waiting all week to hear this beautiful, beautiful sound, but engage with the show. We want to hear your comments. We got to hear that lovely, lovely sound.
Here we go.
That's right. Engage with us. I guess you see some comments are already pouring in. Our buddy Jeff saying our comments about Dustin's hair allowed. Absolutely. Go.
Oh, yeah.
Right ahead,
Yeah.
Jeff. He also says, oh, and hi, all. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Hey,
We appreciate it.
You know, I decided to just wing it today. And I was like, should I correct it before the live stream? And I went, nah.
No.
This is a stylistic choice.
Hey, Bishop Bullwinkle, should Dustin have styled his hair before the show?
Woo! Hell no. To the no, no, no. Hell to the no. Hell to the no. To the no, no, no. Listen.
All right, enough screwing around. We got some special guests. We've got from the Rising to the Occasion podcast joining us for the first 25 minutes or so of the show. The first 20 minutes of the show, we've got Josh and Jeremy joining us all the way live from an undisclosed bunker somewhere in the Midwest. Josh and Jeremy, thanks for joining us. How you guys doing today?
Good.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. But I was just thinking, I seen everything that people were wearing at the Met Gala, and your hair doesn't even compete, Dustin. So, I wouldn't even worry.
Oh man,
Dustin's going for the Lukes, as the kids call it, LEWKS. So we're going to start our show by talking some MLB news. Major League Baseball had plenty of things going on with Major League Baseball this week. Locally, we're in the Northeast, where we're surrounded by Yankees, Mets, and Red Sox fans. But Dustin and I are Yankees fans, so we're going to talk about the Yankees. They lost 2 out of 3 in Tampa, close series. All three games separated by 1 run. But the Yankees are currently in last place in the AL East, and I want to get your guys' opinions. Is it time for the Yankees to panic, or do they just need to get healthy? And they have Oakland for the next couple of games, so at home. So do the Yankees need to sweep Oakland in order to get their season right? And Josh and Jeremy, I'm going to start with you guys. What's your opinion on the matter with the New York Yankees? What do you think's going on there?
I mean, personally, I think the Yankees, I mean, it's still early in the season. That's the amazing thing about baseball. That's what makes it kind of hard to follow along because there's so many games. But at the same time, for the players aspect and for the teams aspect, it's such a long season. I don't think it's quite time to panic, but it is time to kind of get that button ready. Maybe just don't unveil it yet. Maybe just keep it covered. Have it sitting right there, kind of like is it deal or no deal that has a little button and you flip it up and hit the button. Just keep that little cover down and don't hit it yet, but get it ready just in case, because it is starting to get scary. But I think it's such a long season. You just kind of got to ride it out and hope that everybody can get healthy a little faster.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and Dustin, how about you? I've seen that Aaron Judge comes back tomorrow night. He's off of IL. I don't know when Stanton's coming back. Giancarlo Glass Joe Stanton. I don't know when he's coming back.
Anytime you can sneak a punch out reference into the show, I'm all for it. That's one of my favorite video games of all time. But anyhow, I'm kind of with Josh on this one. I feel like the Yankees, first of all, I'll take responsibility for it. Garrett Cole must have heard me complimenting him a couple of shows ago, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to stop pitching well because that guy with the funky hair, I got to keep him off his guard here. I got to keep him on his toes. But I do feel like the Yankees, to lose a game like they lost in Tampa, that last one, they were up 6-0, and they proceeded to blow that game. That is, I know it's early in the season, but that's a bit of an indicator, because last year the Yankees found ways to win games like this, not lose them. And there are a lot of injuries, but pitching has been inconsistent the last few years. The Rendon signing looks like a disaster early. Try not to panic, but in my opinion, if you don't take a 3 or 4 game series in Oakland?
They got 3-game series against Oakland and then a 4-game series against Tampa at home.
Okay, if you don't take the 3 games in Oakland, you got to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. And no offense to Oakland, they have the players are doing the best they can under those circumstances. That lineup is, people say that it's a AAA lineup. I wouldn't go that far, but you've got to beat Oakland, because on paper, that's a team that you should beat, and you should beat them handily, because Tampa is going to be a tough series. If the Yankees split that series, I'll be happy.
Well, this is the entire month of May for the Yankees. So they've got Oakland tonight for a 3-game series starting tonight. They got a 4-game series against Tampa, who looks unstoppable right now. Then they're at Toronto, at Cincinnati. They got to win against Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. At home against Baltimore, then at home against San Diego. Then they travel to Seattle for a 3-game stretch there. They're on the West Coast in late May into early June. So to me, they have to sweep Oakland. And yes, it's unfair to call Oakland a AAA lineup. Granted, like their entire payroll is Shohei Ohtani's 1-year salary.
Yeah.
So that's how rough things are in Oakland right now. But the Yankees, they got to do something. They got to say. I think this will be a season. To me, I think it's a season-saving series. This could make or break them, because once they get Yankees last year, once they got rolling, they got rolling, and they just were unstoppable until about end of July, August last year, when they got all those injuries and they were losing games left and right.
Yeah,
they're losing left and right now, and it's just going to be interesting to see what they do this week with this 3-game series. I kind of wonder if this bad stretch goes into May, or it goes later into this month. I kind of wonder if Aaron Boone's going to be out of a job.
Could be possible. There's been rumblings of that for a long time now, and it seems that a lot of I mean, if you listen to some of the Yankee fans that comment on social media and stuff, Aaron Boone's the worst manager in baseball now. I think he's a far cry from that, but he does some things every once in a while. As a Aaron Boone knows more about baseball in his pinky than I do in my whole being, but. Still, he does some things every once in a while that make me scratch my head and go, So
Yeah. I'm starting to wonder if Aaron Boone is not a human, but he's actually an AI machine. With all the analytics he does, because he trusts the analytics so much.
Yeah.
I'm beginning to wonder if he's a chat bot.
Yeah. Boom GPT. Oh man.
I think in New York, you're seeing a really similar situation because I don't know, you're taking a good manager who I agree with you, Dustin. I don't think he's worth firing yet. You're seeing a similar situation over, with the Rangers in New York. I'm a big Rangers fan, and seeing them get rid of their head coach for, really a very, very comparable coaches, I think. And you just kind of get in this groove of not quite mediocre. I mean, because the Yankees were really good last year. But just above mediocre, where you're getting to the playoffs, you're doing well there, but you just can't push it any further. And the fans get irritated, they get fed up, and they're ready to move on to see what somebody else could do to step in to do something, to kind of bring them forward. So I can understand fans' frustrations. But living in the Midwest, my family is, I'm not, so please don't accuse me of being one, but my family is Nebraska fans. And they got rid of a pretty good coach that was getting them 9 or 10 wins a season to trade down to, they had Mike Riley for a little while, who really barely got them to 5 or 6.
You trade Bo Pelini for Mike Riley.
Yeah. So, you go down to maybe 5 to 6 tops. And then you trade him in for what seemed like a better choice in Scott Frost. So coming from that perspective and seeing the fans around here going through that depression of trading in a coach that they really should have stuck with. And they did the similar situation years ago with Solich. But you just kind of see that. I hope that this isn't where New York is heading if they do that. I think they've got enough reputation and enough money to get a good manager in there if they do go down that road. But I just hope that that's not the case for the Yankees, because they're such a name brand in the MLB.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you don't have George Steinbrenner, God rest his soul, breathing down your neck every so often. You have Hal Steinbrenner, who's a lot more
he's
tepid.
He's measured. He takes a more measured approach, I'd say, and I do think I agree with Josh's point. I think it's become a trend, and you can all correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but it's in the air. It's easy to blame the coach, the manager, whatever, because it's the quick fix. I mean, we don't usually cover the NBA much on this show, but I was shocked to see that Mike Budenholzer was let go by Milwaukee because of their first round exit in the playoffs this year. His record, he's done very well with the Milwaukee Bucks. And I just couldn't believe that after he took them to the finals the previous year, they're the defending champions, and his record is above 500 by a bit from what I understand in his couple of year stint in Milwaukee there. And they just axed him because of a first round playoff exit. They're not even giving these coaches, in some regards, not even giving these coaches. Now, Boone has been the manager of the Yankees for a number of years now, so that's not his situation. But some coaches don't even get a chance to get started before they're let go.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, it's very true. We're going to move on from the Yankees. We're going to talk about the Atlanta Braves. They're rolling right. Speaking of rolling teams, they're rolling right now. They've won 5 of their last 6. They're the top team in the National League right now. Guys, and Dustin, I'm going to start with you. Are they the team to beat right now in the National League?
Well, it's early in this marathon sprint of a season, but I mean, they've got talent everywhere. I think most people would agree that their pitching is better than people thought it was going to be for the last couple of years.
Yeah,
And now,
even with Ian Anderson out of the lineup now, he had to have Tommy John surgery, so
yeah,
so he's out of the lineup until at least next May, I think.
yeah, I think he's going to miss the entire rest of the season. But it is, I mean, even Marcell Ozuna is starting to hit for them. I mean, the Braves are just going on all cylinders right now. And they when you are able to send a talented player like Vaughn Grissom back down to the minors, you're doing some things right. And Sean Murphy, who in earlier episodes of this show, when the season first started, I said, man, this contract, maybe he's feeling the pressure a little bit because he did not have a great start to the season, but he's starting to pick it up. So, I mean, the Braves are just firing on all cylinders right now, and I'd say they're easily the best team in the NL. What are your thoughts, gentlemen, on the situation here?
Josh and Jeremy, what's your feeling on the matter?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Braves are always kind of going to be one of those teams that I think I kind of look at from the MLB standpoint and say that they're going to make a good run. They're good and they're historically good. But yeah, I mean, they're going on a tear right now. I know you kind of brought up the Red Sox there just a minute, but I'd like to bounce back to the Red Sox real quick because I think they're also on a tear. I think 8 of 9. The Phillies just beat them yesterday, but I'm a Red Sox fan, so I'll bring them up and give them a little shout out too. But no, bouncing back to the Braves though, yeah, I mean, I don't. When they get healthy and fully healthy, I think they're going to be really dangerous because I don't think they're fully healthy yet. And so I mean, I think they've got some guys that have come back in and they're playing that haven't quite reached their, maybe whatever 90% potential. But yeah, I like the Braves a lot.
Yeah, I mean you get the Braves. Oh, go ahead, Jeremy. Sorry.
No, like what Josh mentioned with even what they just done with, quote me if I'm wrong, who they just recently get done playing with in the series, the Cincinnati Reds? Or
I want to say
who they just get done recently playing? Because I know I remember seeing highlights from the Atlanta Braves, and then just looking at them overall, they're, like you mentioned, Josh, they're a team to become reckoned with. And once they fully get to that fully potential health, then they're definitely going to be one of the teams to keep a definite
the Braves just played Baltimore.
Yeah,
3-game series against Baltimore.
Yeah,
who are not a bad team either. Let's give them some points too.
And they just now beat the Mets recently too. Who, let's be honest, the Mets are good. As much as I think none of us want to say, the Mets are pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Buck Showalter, he's a great manager. He always manages to put things together. But I will say, Josh, the Red Sox offense is on fire right now, and Chris Sale must have heard me talking junk about him. So I got a bad track record. I jinxed Garrett Cole, and I was like saying Chris Sale looked like hot garbage, and now he's on a tear again. So, I'm really
shout out to the Phillies too for what they were able to do to the Red Sox yesterday, because only holding them to one run is really tough with that batting lineup. They have just been hitting dingers for the last 12 games. Really, they've been hitting the over like crazy.
So speaking of the Red Sox and the Phillies, did you guys see the standoff yesterday between the two of the players on the Red Sox and the Phillies? Who got ejected?
I was able to see a little bit of it because I wasn't able to catch the game, but I was able to go back and kind of watch some of the highlights. That's how I catch up on a lot of them that I can't find. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of any kind of fights. That's why I love hockey so much, because you're allowed to. So anytime you can kind of get into it a little bit and get chippy, I mean, to me, it just shows the passion for your team and for the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are these standoffs getting kind of silly? Are they kind of silly, or is this just a matter of just good old fashioned gamesmanship?
I think it's honestly just a matter of gamesmanship.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the situation, because a lot of times, and I don't know about that situation, I didn't see what happened afterwards, but a lot of times what you'll see is those players will get together after the game and they'll be fine. Like they'll chip it out on the field because it's in the middle of the game. The same thing with hockey. You'll see that a lot in hockey, where, two guys, they understood, like, I think it was in I'm trying to think, it was earlier in the season. I know I was watching a Pittsburgh Penguins game, and somebody got hurt in the middle of the game, and one of the other players just looked at him and said, you're going to have to pay for this. And they shook each other's heads, dropped the gloves and go at it. And it's just part of that gamesmanship. But there are definitely times where it's just silly and it makes no sense why they'd be getting in chippy fights like that.
There's also that thing in hockey where we had the last players to leave the ice. I think it was it Brad Marchand, and I forgot who the other player was. They're just staying on the ice until the referees either the referees came along or they did a rock paper scissors to figure out who's gonna be the last one to leave the ice.
How it goes.
See, I like that kind of stuff. It's supposed to be fun, and you want those little game within the game. Because I always get on baseball a little bit because they have a reputation of like being a little bit of a stuffed shirt. They frown upon a lot of things because quote unquote traditionalists.
You're wrecking the tradition of the game, Dustin.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm wrecking the tradition of the game.
Tradition of the game, and baseball is one of the dirtiest sports since its inception. Come on.
I'm wrecking the game just like my hair tonight. But anyway,
there you go.
I just feel like, let them have, it's a long season. Let them have these little game within the games. Like I remember the chewing gum thing from last year. I forget what team was doing that. It might have been the Yankees, but they were throwing chewing gum, trying to get the closest to the team logo on the field, and people were up in arms about that. It's like they're just trying to have some fun and kill some time in the bullpen while this game's going on.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous, But baseball is one of two things, and the one thing I love about modern baseball now in the dugout, everybody just wants to have fun, like little kids in the dugout. Like you had that little league tradition of just wanting to have fun. That's what the game is. It's supposed to be fun. I know you're getting paid hundreds of, tens of millions of dollars every year to play a silly game. You might as well have some fun with it. I mean, I see the I rave about the Pittsburgh Pirates. Unfortunately, their boat is kind of treading water right now. But they have that dugout celebration where they have the sword, and the Seattle Mariners have the trident. I'm surprised Brick Tamlin hasn't killed anybody with that trident yet. But I love these these clubhouse celebrations when they have a big hit or a run scored or a big fielding play.
Yeah, and I think it is kind of a case-by-case situation too, because there are definitely some where it's like, really, why are you getting in a fight over that? Like now you're just being petty, and when you're getting up into the umpire's face for something that was really a good call. I've seen that a lot of times, and it's easy to get frustrated at the umpire, but you got to realize they're human too. In many cases,
they got a job to do. I mean, going back to like you guys even mentioned for celebrations. There's one celebration I saw over the weekend. I want to say it's easily one of the top 5 best ones. It's for the Washington Nationals with having the George Washington wig on the dugout. Then all of a sudden is doing the walkthrough with the little American flag. That's probably honestly one of my favorite ones so far.
Nice.
That's probably one of the top ones I've seen so far in the league.
George Washington, my personal favorite president. He's the GOAT. All right, Josh and Jeremy, you guys got to stream in a couple minutes, but before we move on, actually, since you're here, Josh, we're brought to you by Mahler Brothers Golf. Ironically enough, we've got the founder, the CEO, the CFO, CTO, and COO of Mahler Golf. So I'm going to have you explain some of your products to our lovely audience. So you had the floor, my friend, for the next couple minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it started off because I grew up really close to a golf course and never played a single game of golf. Had a buddy tell me, hey, you need to come play golf with me. I wouldn't do it for the longest time. Went to Top Golf and realized how difficult it is to even make contact with the ball. So that's how I kind of got into the game of golf. And then from there, it just became a huge love for the game. And I'm still probably just as good as I was at Top Golf the first time I ever went. But I still love to play the golf. And even though my golf game isn't good, I like to look good when I'm on the golf course. And so one way that I try to do that is I try to go out and find these polos, but a lot of times polos, they just don't have a good feel. They don't fit right. And I was trying to find a polo that made me look good and feel good while I'm on the course, something that's lightweight, but something that I can enjoy on the course. And that's basically what I ended up coming up with. And I thought, you know what, how about I start my own brand? And so my brother and I kind of got into it together. And so we just figured, why not just call it Mahler Bros Golf? And so we got into it, started it, and went through several suppliers before finally finding one that it was a lightweight material. It's made from recycled material, and so it's kind of eco-friendly as well. And it really is probably the most comfortable polo I have ever worn. And not only that, but for me personally, I got to design whatever designs I wanted. And that's another thing too, is that we love to take design ideas as well. We've gotten some that are on the store from people that have just either emailed us or contacted us, through Facebook or social media and saying, hey, do you guys have this kind of a design? And so we created it that way. And so that's something that we take pride in, is being able to still be small enough right now where we can still take the maybe suggestions and stuff like that from our customers and stuff like that. And I kept on wanting to say viewers, but I'm talking about the business here. But yeah, so for our customers, but it really is probably my favorite polo. And I know I'm saying that as the owner, but I wouldn't sell a product that I don't love myself. And so, it really is an amazing product. And not only that, but I also thought some golfers don't like polos. And so I started coming up with different t-shirt ideas and stuff like that. And so we've got t-shirts and hats and all kinds of stuff, and we're trying to expand from there. So the more people we can direct over to us to give us their money, we can kind of expand from there and kind of give them more products as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really awesome. And it's really funny that we had you on tonight for a short while so you could explain the product. But before I let you go, tell the people where they can find you. And also tell them where they can find a possible no credentials required collection for Mahler Brothers Golf.
Yeah. I mean, you shoot me some ideas and I will definitely put them up there. I know we've got we do have some belly up merch on Mahler Bros, since we're kind of got that a little bit of a partnership there. But as far as that, you can definitely check that out. I know Divots and Pivots actually, whenever they were part of Belly Up, they gave us some ideas too. So we made some shirts directly for them and stuff like that. So shoot us some ideas. We'd love to kind of toy around with it. But as far as rising to the occasion, you can find us. The easiest place you can go to is rising2.com. It's just risingto.com. We've got all of our audio, our YouTube and everything, social media, all tagged on there. So that's probably the easiest place for us to send everybody. We just talk about all sports pretty much like you guys do. And we try to cover them all. Even if we don't really pay that much attention, we try to study on them and still give the viewers what they want.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I know these guys got a stream going on in a couple minutes, so I'll let you go. But we want to thank both of you guys, Josh and Jeremy from Rising to the Occasion, joining us for a little bit of time tonight to talk some baseball. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thanks
for
guys.
having us on, guys.
Hey, it was awesome. Anytime.
All right. So we're going to keep going with our coverage of the Stanley Cup Playoffs and the draft lottery. It's happening tonight, Dustin. We touched on it a little bit in our Major League Baseball segment with the Devils and the New York Rangers. My New Jersey Devils advanced to the second round. They're currently behind 2-1 in their series against Carolina, but they wound up spanking the Carolina Hurricanes yesterday. But we had a fallout on Saturday when the Rangers fired Gerard Gallant, their head coach, after 2 seasons. And after they loaded the lineup with guys like Vladimir Tarasenko and Patrick Kane to go on what they thought was going to be a deep Stanley Cup run. Unfortunately for Rangers fans, they got to see their teams eliminated in 7 games against the New Jersey Devils. So looking at the trend, you mentioned it with the Milwaukee Bucks head coach being fired after this season, after their poor performance in the first round of the playoffs. Is this sort of an anomaly in sports now to fire the coach after a poor playoff performance, or is this going to be a trending thing?
I guess I dovetailed it. I think it's becoming a little bit of a trend. And honestly, I've always had the feeling, and let me know if I'm wrong, Ryan, because you follow the NHL more than I do, but it always seems like the NHL is the league where I feel like the coach's carousel moves the fastest, if that makes the sense. The NHL head coaches generally seem to get less rope than most coaches in other sports. For every, and there are coaches that have had like long stretches with teams. That does happen, obviously. I mean, Bruce Boudreau had quite a run with the Capitals, I think. I
Yep.
can't remember how long he was their coach. Barry Trotz was the head coach of the Predators for quite a long time. So there are runs where there are coaches that stay for long, long periods of time in the NHL, but they seem, in general, NHL owners, for whatever reason, are more willing to pull the trigger after a couple bad performances, or it just seems like in general they don't receive as much time. I mean, Lindy Ruff, he was the coach of the Sabres for quite a while before he was on the
Yep.
Devils, but to me, I
Mhm.
feel like that is an anomaly in the NHL.
Yeah, I know Barry Trotz had gone from long time. I think it was the Nashville Predators coach for I think the first 15 or 16
Yes.
seasons of their existence.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was let go, picked
Yep.
up by the Capitals, won a Stanley Cup with the Capitals, fired 2
Right.
years later, goes
Yep.
to the Islanders, coaches a couple of seasons there, had one bad season last season, and was dismissed.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wonder who's the Rangers going to wind up with. I wonder if they're going to give Barry Trotz a call. Barry Trotz is an excellent head coach. He's won a
Mm-hmm.
Stanley Cup. He's taken teams to the Stanley Cup final twice with once. No, that was Peter Laviolette with the Predators. Sorry,
Oh, okay.
that wasn't Trotz. That was Peter Laviolette. But he's taken a team to the Stanley Cup and won a Stanley Cup. He's taken teams deep into the playoffs. So, and I kind of wonder, and this is Jimmy Dolan, the genius of Jimmy Dolan, who decided to let Gerard Gallant go. From what I understand, Gerard Gallant and general manager Chris Drury got into a heated discussion during Game 7 of the last round. I think it was in the Rangers. I didn't watch the game. I listened to the game because I don't have TBS or
Okay.
TNT.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was on ESPN, so I couldn't watch. But I still couldn't watch it anyway.
Oh.
It's neither here nor there. But I guess from what I could, from what I understand, the Rangers looked listless. Artemi Panarin, who is key, he's a big player. He's a big performer in the regular season, but the postseason he disappears. Stan Fischler, the legendary Stan Fischler, called him overpaid Russian toast.
Oh, man.
He only had 1 point in the series against the Devils. Patrick Kane brought in to add some Stanley Cup experience. 5 points. I don't think he scored in the last 5 games of that series. The only guy who seemed to be performing was Chris Kreider, but he gave up a puck in the second period of the Devils game of their game against the Devils that led to a shorthanded goal, and Andre Palat was on both him and Adam Fox to hit the puck back, and that led to the game-winning goal. I don't think this is so much of a trend. I think it's mostly an anomaly. That's just my personal opinion. Everybody's welcome to their own, but you are right in the assessment that that coaching in the NHL seems to have a shorter leash than other leagues. I would say the NFL is.
Yeah,
you could say that for the NFL. Major League Baseball managers stay a little bit longer than they should, or they ought to. NBA coaches they stay a little bit longer too. But you're right in that the NHL and I think the NFL too. The leash is much shorter when it comes to coaching, because because of the desire to win the Stanley Cup or to win the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more prevalent in the NFL, to be honest with you. I mean, look at the Houston Texans.
Yeah,
they're the third head coach in 3 years.
Yeah, which David Culley got a raw deal, and
He did.
Even Lovie Smith last year.
And Lovie Smith, yeah.
Lovie did all right, but yeah, granted, the point that you just made, the NFL is perhaps the most reactionary league, I think to some degree, I tend to forget that because my favorite team, they've had consistency at the head coaching position for a long time now.
Yep.
Pete Carroll's been around a while. He's been around in ice age in NFL terms, So I guess I just forgot about it because for every Belichick or Pete Carroll, there's a
There's an Adam
David
Gase.
Covey
You
or
can
an
say
Adam.
it.
Yep. Yep. So
Oh, yeah. So it's just I don't know. It's Kyle Hall, who's our New York Rangers beat writer. He also runs the podcast, The Broadcast Hat. He had some stuff. He had some things to say about it in his last podcast. So if you're a Rangers fan, go ahead and listen to that. Go ahead and read that article. So the NHL draft lotteries tonight. And actually, before we touch on that, I just want to ask you, from your Edmonton Oilers, Leon Draisaitl. He is currently on a pace for over 20 goals in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The record is shared by two players with 19, Reggie Leach in 1976 and Yari Curry from your Edmonton Oilers in 1985. Do you think Draisaitl can break this record if the Oilers go straight up to the final?
if they go there's two ways that I think that he could possibly do it. I think if they go all the way up to the final and the series, and I hope it's not the case, but they went 6 games against the Kings, right? And currently they're tied with the Golden Knights.
Yep.
So if they go all the way to the finals and each of the series to get there goes 6 or 7 games, I think he has a shot to break it. Because, I mean, he has shown a knack for scoring goals, and also it helps that he's been a winger on Connor McDavid's line. so I think with those factors he could do it, but I think the series each of the series leading up to the Cup would have to be on the longer side.
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, there's a possibility that they could play 21 more games to go, including the Stanley Cup Finals. So that would be. But if they play that many games, you could definitely see him breaking the record. If they don't play that many games, I think he could still break the record. Yeah. And the way Edmonton has been playing during the playoffs, they've been pretty solid. I mean, game 1 against Vegas, notwithstanding, when they had a 4-goal lead and wound up letting that go.
Yeah.
But they wound up showing up in the second game. So tonight, 8:30 p.m., that's game 3 in Edmonton. So the ice is tilted. It's now best of 5. So it'll be interesting to see how long they go. So draft lotteries tonight, it's in about 21 minutes. And there is a lot of speculation as to where the number 1 pick, the consensus number 1 pick in the draft, Connor Bedard of the Regina Pats, as our friend Rod Peterson calls God's team, the Regina Pats. He was the leading scorer in the Canadian Hockey League Juniors last year this past year with 143 points. He had 77 goals and 76 assists in the regular season. That's an incredible scoring pace for a 17-year-old. But I was looking at the odds, and I don't know, Dustin, if you got a chance to look at the odds of the top teams who are projected to get the number 1 pick in this year's NHL draft and presumably pick up Connor Bedard. Out of all those teams with the best chance, who do you think has the best chance who do you think will win tonight's draft lottery?
Honestly, I haven't gotten a chance to look at the odds. So who has the best odds to get up?
Right now, the Anaheim Ducks have an 18.5% chance of getting the number 1 pick. They have the most. They have the most balls in the draft lottery pool, followed by Columbus with 13.5, Chicago with 11.5, San Jose 9.5, Montreal 8.5, Arizona 7.5, Philadelphia 6.5, Washington 6, Detroit 5, St. Louis 3.5, Vancouver 3. Ottawa 2.5. Now, here's the thing with Ottawa. If the pick is not in the top 5, the Arizona Coyotes will pick up their draft pick. So if it's anywhere from 6 through I think 14, or not 14. Yeah, 14. If it's anywhere after 6 through 14, then or 18, it'll go to the Coyotes. Buffalo with a 2% chance, Pittsburgh with a 1.5%. Then following in the caboose are the Nashville Predators and the Calgary Flames. They both have a 0.5% chance of picking up the first round pick in this year's NHL draft. I've seen weirder things happen in the draft. Case in point, 3 years ago during our bubble tournament, where they had the play-in tournament, then they had the Stanley Cup, then they had this playoffs afterwards. Team E, I'm putting it in air quotes, which means team eliminated. So if you were the first team to be eliminated from the play-in round, you were entered into the draft lottery. That particular slot had a 2.5% chance of getting the number 1 pick in the draft. Guess what happened?
They got it.
They got it. And come to find out the New York Rangers pick up the number 1 pick, and they went up getting Alexei Lafreniere, who I guess has been a very big disappointment so far tonight. So far in his career, in his 3-year career. I'm gonna put my conspiracy hat on, Dustin.
All right. Lay the tinfoil on me.
All right, so the tinfoil goes as goes. I think Gary Bettman will rig this draft, and he'll have the Arizona Coyotes win the draft lottery, because if there's one thing he wants in his career before he retires, he's been a commissioner for 30 years now, this is his white whale. He is Colonel Ahab chasing Moby Dick, and Moby Dick is stability in the Arizona area, in the Sun Belt area of the country, in the Southwest. I think he wants Arizona to win that draft pick so he can pick up Connor Bedard, and they can sign hometown guy Austin Matthews in the offseason. He's a free agent this year. Okay. And to have Austin Matthews and Connor Bedard on the same line coming at you for 82 games next season. Right now they play at Mullet Arena on the campus of Arizona State University. They're supposedly having an arena built for, it's going to be hockey. I just think this is, again, my conspiracy hat's going off. If this happens, Reistradamus is for real.
All right, yeah, I will say, because this has shades of what are the accusations?
Patrick Ewing, 1985.
Yeah, that Stern like had the frozen envelope.
The frozen envelope,
so
yes.
He knew which one to take. Or do you think it's just going to be a remember when the Magic ended up getting the number 1 pick like a couple of years in a row, and they drafted Shaq,
Shaquille O'Neal, and they drafted Chris Webber,
and
who they traded for Penny Hardaway.
Yep. So that was there's a great 30 for 30 on that. But
this magic moment. Yep.
Yeah, I could see it happening though. I mean, I don't want to go as far to say that the tinfoil hat goes on for me, but if that happens, then Reistradamus is for real. And Gary Bettman should give you a call because you're out of the NHL. but it's just that if that happens, I will be very scared. I mean, Trevor Lawrence.
You're going to be scared.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. Now, my biggest concern is that the Flames don't get it because Alberta's only big enough for one Connor, and the Oilers have him. So I hope he doesn't go to the Flames. I'll tell you that.
They have a 0.5% chance of getting the number 1 pick in the draft. I don't think it's going to happen.
What are we going to do now? What are we going to do if the Flames actually get them? What are we going to say? The reverse jinx? You know, like what kind of powers will I have?
Well, you've already jinxed Garrett Cole. You reverse jinxed Chris Sale. If you reverse jinx the Calgary Flames, I don't know what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be bedlam. And And if
Fuck out, it's Bedlam.
and if the Flames get him, then Brian Anderson better like watch it because I picked him in the Battle of the Bryans.
Al the Connors. Oh man. All right, before we move on to our next topic of discussion, which will be the NFL, we're going to talk. We got to visit the comment section because we haven't done that in a while, Dustin.
Yeah,
we haven't done that. We haven't done that since the first minute or two of the program. So to visit here, Kevin Wilson, our guy Kev, who's part of our Belly Up Fantasy Sports team. He says calling Oakland a AAA lineup is being generous.
Ooh, harsh,
maybe
harsh.
Wonka the Sane joining us. He says I'm disqualified from hair comments due to lack of hair. Same here. Jeff says to Kevin, there are 28 and 27, referring to the Oakland A's. They're 8 and 27. That's fair. Basically been as bad as Tampa Bay has been good. He also says to Wonko, haha, fair enough. We talked about the Atlanta Braves being the best team in the National League. Kevin says clearly better. The Dodgers are on line 1. Yeah, this is true.
Okay, true. All right.
Wonko the Saint says Seattle Mariners are charging back into mediocrity. Kevin said Vince. So you're not the only one. So Dustin, you're not the only one who's jinxed Garrett Cole. He says Vince Stover from the Sports Stove podcast. He said they both said they spoke highly of Cole on their show. So which is our fantasy baseball show. He says, so I guess we jinxed him too. Yeah, Kevin, you did. Cold Iron says, I'm in the chat. Welcome, Cold Iron. He also says, coaching is so critical.
That is true.
Jeff says, been listening to this, but just finished scanning through the Denver Phoenix game from last night on mute. What the heck was Jokic doing going into the crowd to try to get the ball back like that? I don't know. I didn't watch the game, so I haven't really been paying attention to the NBA, so I really can't tell you.
He claimed that that the Suns owner put his hand on him first. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know who's telling the truth in that one. But I will tell you that I saw on Instagram today the Nuggets coach's response when he was asked about it, and one of the reporters was like, "Do you think the fact that the fan who interacted was the owner of the Phoenix Suns, if that made any difference?" And the coach, he looked and he's like, I don't give a shit. That was great.
Jeff also says we have more than one ball.
Yeah.
Wonka says Jokic don't care.
Yeah.
How fun was that? And Jeff goes on to say, from what I saw, nothing bad actually happened. I thought it was so OCD or something for him to care so much that the ball might not get returned.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's wouldn't be the first time a coach interacts with or an owner interacts with a player during a game. Won't be the last.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Let's turn it over to some NFL news, Dustin. Let's talk about this weird tweet that Colts owner Jim Irsay sent out this afternoon. He made this really blind accusation of tampering. And I'm going to read the tweet. This is what it says. And I quote, if any NFL team attempted to contact Andrew Luck or any associate of him to play for their franchise, it would be a clear violation of the league's tampering policy, unquote. Now, apparently, in an article on ESPN from this weekend, the Washington Commanders, of course, had made a phone call about Andrew Luck. Now, who they made it to, whether it was just kind of a loose comment, or if it was for real, because let's face it, the Washington Commanders were pretty thin at quarterback last year.
Yeah.
Even if they had said something just out of just a flippant comment about Andrew Luck being available, Luck still has 3 years remaining on his contract when he retired with the Colts before the 2019 season. But if he were to be reinstated, he would still remain with the Colts. Now, let me ask you, Dustin, and I'll ask anybody who's watching or listening, do you think Irsay has a leg to stand on? Or is he being crazy? Or is this just another case of the Commanders being the Commanders?
Well, not to take the coward's way out, but I feel like it's a combination of all three. I think one, One, we got to remember who's coaching the Commanders. It's old Riverboat Ron. He doesn't. He likes to gamble. He likes to gamble. But no, that's. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if the Commanders did actually inquire because Andrew Luck, he was a great quarterback. So
Was a
why?
good quarterback.
But Jim Irsay, I think he has a little bit of a point only because Andrew Luck is technically still under contract with the Colts if he re-entered the league. So that's where I think Irsay has a little bit of a point. But I also think Irsay is taking it much, much too far because Andrew Luck has made no indications at all that he wants to return to football. I think if he wanted to return to football, he would have done it by now because – I mean, let's face it, the Colts didn't exactly have any legends at QB last year. So he could have just waltzed in.
I mean, they had – we were talking about Washington, right?
Well, no, but the Colts themselves, I mean, Matt
well,
Ryan,
they had Matt Ryan. That's neither here nor there.
But he looked – I mean, so you're telling me that if Andrew Luck felt like he wanted to return to football, he wouldn't have given his old team a call and said, hey, I could probably still sling it for you. So that's where I think this whole thing has gotten a little too far out of hand because the most important person in this story is Andrew Luck. And like I said, as far as we know, he has made no indication whatsoever that he wants to return to football.
No. I mean, I think Jim Irsay is talking out of his arse, to be quite honest with you. It's not the first time he's done that.
Yeah, it is true.
But I also wouldn't put it past the Commanders to make such a call, even if it was just a flippant comment of saying, hey, let's try and get Andrew Luck.
Yeah, especially with their previous ownership.
Yeah, they would have to essentially trade his – what Indianapolis would have to do is essentially trade his rights since he was still under contract with the Colts for 3 more years. They would have to trade his rights over to the Commanders for some draft picks as compensation. Now, what kind of draft picks they would get back, I don't know. Probably a third, I'd probably say a 4th and a 5th or a 4th and a 3rd. But again, it's just you got 2 owners who are kind of unhinged.
Yeah, yeah.
In a way. And I guess what I understand, Jim Irsay does not like Daniel Snyder at all. And he's glad to see him go once that deal for the Commanders with David Harris and Magic Johnson's group goes through. Once that $6 billion deal goes through, Daniel Snyder will be glad to take his money and take their money and be on his merry way. So he doesn't have to deal with these headaches anymore. And that headache, and by headache I mean Jim Irsay. So like you said, it could be a combination of all 3. I think it's just Jim Irsay being paranoid, and I think. I mean, the Commanders could have done this. Yeah, we don't know. It's the Commanders being the Commanders, but I think Jim Irsay is just being a little bit unhinged based on something that was said in ESPN.
Yeah,
blow 1 Super Bowl and Dustin never forgets. So we also got to talk about this schedule release coming out this Thursday night. We're going to finally see what the 2023 schedule looks like. Adam Schefter leaked a couple details about this year's schedule. And Dustin, I want to get your feeling about this. So per Adam Schefter, this came out this afternoon. There will be a game on Black Friday this year for the first time ever. They also said games are not exclusive to networks on Sundays. All games are, quote, free agents. So it's not network exclusive to have the CBS covering the AFC and Fox covering the NFC. They go all the way around. It's going to be free agent. Teams can be on Thursday Night Football twice. I don't know why you would want to. And last but not least, not all teams are guaranteed a primetime spot. Please, dear Jesus, we don't want to see the Cleveland Browns in a primetime spot this year, or the Houston Texans, or the Green Bay Packers, or God knows who else is going to be really terrible this year. So what's your opinion about this, Dustin? What do you see that's a good thing about the schedule release? What do you think is going to be a bad thing about the schedule release, according to this report?
Well, okay, so I will say that First, I'll go with you. I'll say some of those primetime games were real stinkers last year. So I think the not every team will be guaranteed a primetime spot is good largely. I mean, I do, as a person that once very rarely saw his team on TV. I would look forward to the one primetime game that the Seahawks had back in the vaunted John Kitna era, or some of the others. But I think at the very least, there should be the ability to flex all the primetime games. I think flex should be a thing. So this aspect, while I do feel for fans of franchises that may not get to see their team as much in a big game, I do think it's good because you want the best games in those primetime slots. So I think that's a good adjustment. This whole thing about the games being free agents, that's just weird to me. And maybe it's just familiarity coming through that the NFC has been on Fox for a long time now. The AFC is on CBS. It feels familiar. It feels good. I don't know how I feel about all games being eligible. Does that mean that more games could potentially go to Amazon? I don't know.
Dear God, I hope not.
I know. See, that's where there's a little bit of uncertainty. And I'm going to come off as kind of a curmudgeon, I guess, on this whole thing. But I also don't know how I feel about a game on Black Friday. While most times I am always a proponent of more football, I want to be able to sit down and I don't like the condensed slate that we already have on that Sunday because of Thanksgiving. I love the Thanksgiving games as much as the next person. I love the fact that it's always Detroit and Dallas. It just feels like a tradition to me. But at the same time, I think it takes away from the Sunday a little bit when you sit down to watch football. There's barely any games.
Yeah.
So the Black Friday game, I think, is a bridge too far for me.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Black Friday game either. Partly because it takes the shine off the National Hockey League, who has their Black Friday game between, I believe it's Boston and the Rangers every year on Thursday on a Friday afternoon. It also takes the shine off, and this is what the NFL has done since they brought the third Thanksgiving Day game along at night. They're starting to try to take the shine off of college football. I believe that's what's going on here, because college football that weekend, Black Friday, Thanksgiving, you have the Egg Bowl, which is in Mississippi, between Mississippi State and Mississippi. That's rivalry weekend. So that's when you see some of the best college football rivalries in Division 1A, what's also called the Football Bowl Series, FBS. I still call it 1A, whatever. But that interferes a lot with that's going to interfere with rivalry weekend, and I don't like that at all. I love rivalry weekend. I love rivalry weekend in college football. As far as the other aspects go, teams being on Thursday Night Football twice, I don't like that either. Stick to the one. I mean, some teams will be on Thursday twice because of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So you'll see Detroit and Dallas as the traditional game. I don't like the aspect of teams twice in a season having to have very short, or three times, if it's the case, if it's going to have Detroit or Dallas be a possible Thursday night game. Three times during the year, you're going to have a very short week.
Yep.
Which is detrimental to everyone. I think it's detrimental to the players. I think it's detrimental to the coaches because you don't get, especially the players, since you don't get that much time to recover. You don't get the recovery time. It's a short week to prepare for another opponent who you just played on Sunday. So I don't like that at all. I mean, unless you're guaranteed a bye week somewhere where you have extra time to prepare. You play a Sunday, you get a bye week, you can come back on a Thursday. I'm okay with that. But if you're playing on a Sunday and then a Thursday for 2 weeks, possibly 3 weeks during the season, I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
And I don't like Thursday Night Football in the first place anyway. Absolutely. Some of the matchups this year were terrible.
Yeah,
Terrible.
and especially those early season matchups because you could see
Colts
people
Broncos. Remember Colts
adjusting.
Broncos? Everybody.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Well, and I was much more open to Thursday night football when it didn't span the entire season. Remember when it was like, what week did they introduce it? Was it like week 7 or something? All of a sudden, then the Thursday games would start.
Mhm.
That was a little better because teams were they were in football shape, for lack of a better term. They were into the groove of the season already. Some of those early Thursday night games are brutal, like just, I don't know. And like I said, 9 times out of 10, I'm a fan of more football, but there's a point where it becomes too much. And like you said, I'm not a huge college football fan, so I didn't even think of them going head to head with FBS and taking some spotlight time away from college football. But it just seems extra money grabby by the NFL. They're the big man on campus, and they are just kind of throwing their weight around at this point.
Yeah, and the last thing was not all teams are guaranteed a primetime spot. I'm okay with that too. I'm okay with that. I don't want to see the Colts. I don't want to see the Broncos. I mean, I think people do want to see the Broncos because they want to see what Sean Payton's going to do with this team. But I don't want to see the Colts. I don't want to see the Texans. I don't want to see the Cardinals. There's certain teams I don't want to watch. They can have the Thursday night games. Great, because it's less often that I have to see them or pay attention to them on Red Zone during Sunday.
Yeah.
But the one team I think you're going to see a lot in primetime this season, my New York Jets.
Oh yeah,
you're going to see them
Rogers.
You're going to see them at least 4 times in primetime, including Thursday night. I think I'm going to make a prediction here. I think they're going to get either they're going to start week 1 either on Sunday night or Monday night against the Giants at Giant Stadium. And it's going to be, that atmosphere is going to be, now I don't know if the Giants are the host, the quote unquote host.
Yeah.
But it's going to be nuts. That MetLife Stadium is going to be crazy. Either way, the Giants are definitely going to get primetime games because of how they did last year. And I think they're going to be, right now their bugaboo is the ultimate hurdle right now is beating the Eagles because they didn't do that at all last year. They pretty much got skunked every single all through their matchups last year, including the game where they had Gardner Minshew playing the entire game in the last week of the season.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that we're not going to see teams that don't deserve primetime games because they're not going to be that good this year. But yeah, some of these are I like. Some of these are kind of the scheduling with the thing with the no not exclusive to networks. I'm kind of gonna miss the NFC exclusive on Fox and AFC exclusive on CBS, and it's gonna be. That's gonna be up. That's fine. That way teams have to bid for. I guess that's a bid for marquee matchups, which is pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, a lot of it's the money grab, like you said, Dustin, from the NFL, because of course, gotta make money somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But there's certain things I like about this mix up, and certain things I don't like about this mix up. So it's a mixed reaction from the both of us, I think. Jeff says, regardless of how the Rogers Jets experiment goes, looking forward to seeing no corrections required and Ryan's reactions to it. Jeff, thank you. Wonka says short weeks suck. Yes, they do. And Jeff says agreed. Short weeks of Thursday night or Thursday. I'm gonna call them. I'm gonna call the really bad matchups on Thursday night football Thursday night football.
All right, I endorse it as your co-host. I co-sign. It shall be ratified.
So it is written.
Yeah.
So it shall be a tradition. So our last topic of tonight, before we move on to before we go off the air tonight, we're talking about this new scandal in college sports, especially in college baseball. We have gambling scandals going on in college baseball. We'll pick up the speed, get you up to speed on what's going on. So on April 28th, there was online betting was stopped in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Ohio when it was found out that suspicious bets were made in Ohio and involved the LSU Alabama baseball game that went on that night. Now, there was a speculation that that a lot of these suspicious bets were from the Alabama baseball coach. He wound up losing his job, which I think is a good thing, because you just ruins the integrity of the game. Pete. Did we not learn from Pete Rose? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And then we have new allegations that came out actually this afternoon with Iowa baseball after 3 players were suspended for a 3-game series against Ohio State from this past weekend. Some of it, and they were speculating it has to do with online gambling. Now, Alabama and Iowa, they're both top-ranked baseball teams. They look like they're going to probably win their respective conferences, or go far in their conference playoff tournaments, and make the College World Series. But these stories are crazy. I mean, Dustin, let's talk about this a little bit more. Is this going to be a big problem in the NCAA? Like, we're seeing this happen in college baseball. Do you think it's going to spread to other sports? Like we've seen it in the past with Arizona State and their gambling, and the gambling scandal happened in the 1990s. Boston College, basketball scandal.
College, for the mob. Yeah.
CCNY back in the 50s with their point shaving scandal. Now that online sportsbook is prevalent in a lot of states right now, thanks to the Supreme Court in 2015 or 2016, awarding telling states, hey, you can do sportsbook. Is this going to be a problem?
I mean, I think it could, but I think, and I'm going to sound, and there's going to be a lot of people that may take offense to this comment, but I think it's telling that it originated in college baseball, which, in my completely uneducated opinion, does not quite have the eyes on it that college basketball or college football does. I think those are much more closely, I don't want to say monitored, but I think you know what I mean. I think it was, I think it would be too, it would be like, it would be going a step too far to say that college baseball was chosen, like it was a calculated act. But I do think this broaches a problem for other college sports that may not, because you can gamble on anything. So what's to stop, this from happening in softball or volleyball or some of the other college sports that aren't as widely viewed or looked upon as some of the others.
And I forgot to mention Iowa State's baseball, not only their baseball team, but their wrestling team and track and field teams are coming under investigation with the NCAA too, regarding gambling and sportsbook. I kind of wonder if it's the same situation with we talked about a couple weeks ago with some NFL players being suspended for 6 games because they were gambling on team headquarter premises. I kind of wonder if this is the same situation. I mean, the Alabama baseball one was just a wacky thing, with just one game being bet on from outside sources. Everybody's betting on it because supposedly the pitcher who's supposed to pitch that night experienced some back problems. They had another guy go in and do the pitching. So somebody had an inside tip. Whether it was the coach who gave that tip or somebody on the baseball team associated with the coach gave that tip, that caused 3 states to shut down online sports bet for a long period of time on last Friday the 28th. It has to make you wonder, what do you think? I know that certain teams are doing their part to rein in their players to stop them from gambling. The NFL is doing this. And some teams have, I guess, what's called a morality clause in their contracts. Baseball players, I'm not sure if other leagues do this, but do you think Why do you think why don't you let me try to put it this way. Why aren't schools doing more to rein in coaches and players on gambling now that we're seeing this come up more? Now that we've seen this explosion, I wouldn't say explosion, but this, okay, alarm bells are going off. We're seeing gambling. We're seeing gambling on premises during so hopefully it's not during games, but
Yeah.
it's a weird thing. What do you think the NCAA has to do to rein these players and coaches in from doing this?
You know what? I don't know. I don't know what they. I don't know what they can do aside from making the penalties more severe. Maybe going the route of vacating of wins or something like that. If you're caught doing it, because I think part of it, and it's a mix of two factors. I think. Because gambling is now something that you can pick up and do with your cell phone, and we all know how, as much as I hate to admit it, my cell phone, it's become second nature for me to just pick the thing up and check it, scroll it constantly. I remember when I first got my the Robinhood app on my phone and I started investing in a couple of stocks, I was checking it constantly. It was a new thing. And I wonder if some of it is because it's so easy and because it's so accessible, it kind of takes the players don't think. They might not think like, oh, this is a bad thing I'm doing. It could be to them. They might be like, oh, this is just like me accessing my Spotify playlist on my phone. It's an app, because it's so accessible now. Some people may not view it as like this wrong thing that they're doing. And I think it's going to be tough for the NCAA to keep tabs on it, because there also is, how many times if you tell a little kid, don't touch that, don't do that, some kids are going to want to do it even more, and that may be the nature of some people. So I really don't know how the NCAA can try to put this genie back in the bottle, but they've got to come up with something quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And also with NIL, name, image, likeness being a big thing too, I'm surprised that more sports gambling companies haven't approached some of these athletes and say, hey, why don't you endorse, we'll give you some money if you endorse our app or our company. This is where the lines get really blurry, and Jeff has a great comment here. He says, hopefully the mainstreaming of gambling options in society don't result in a spike in addiction. I definitely agree there.
Yeah.
I'll disclose it. I mean, I've used DraftKings. I have a DraftKings on my phone. I'll put some money in the account, and if I bet, I'll make very small bets. It's very small, like maybe $1 or $5 here and there. Nothing really too big. Because I don't. Gambling's not my thing. So, you gotta wonder.
It's the old adage from the Mel Gibson classic, The Patriot: aim small, miss small.
Exactly. So you gotta wonder if the NCAA does have to do something to rein this in before it just gets out of control.
Yeah,
it gets out of control because we talk about athletes getting, we've talked about athletes getting paid outside of their scholarships, how they can earn money now with NIL, and that seems to be out of control too. So we got to do something about this. Hopefully soon. It's crazy. It's just crazy stories.
yeah. It's a crazy time we're living in, because then, not to get too crazy, but I'll put my tinfoil hat on. I would bet you within the next year or few months, somebody's going to figure out how to have an AI program submit bets for them. And then what do you do for there? Because where do you track the responsibility? Because the person could say, well, I didn't submit the bet. Who knows what could happen? But yeah. I heard about, and I don't know if this is true, but I heard on a podcast I was listening to that supposedly an AI tricked somebody into helping them solve a CAPTCHA, because they said, "Oh no, I'm not an AI. I'm a blind person, and I just can't see the caption. I need to log into this. I need to log into this thing." So the person like helped them solve the caption, and then the AI was able to log in. I mean, it's just crazy times we're living in right now. Crazy times.
Absolute lunacy. Absolute lunacy.
Yeah.
All right. So we've had a fun time. I know credentials required today. So we just want to remind you before we go to go to our social media channels on Twitter and Instagram, and the scarcely used TikTok is at NoCredsREQ, Facebook.com/NoCredsREQ, YouTube.com/at NoCredsREQ. If you're watching live or you're watching on the replay, don't forget to smash that like button. Smash responsibly. On the podcast side, subscribe to our podcast on a myriad of platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Google Play, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, wherever you podcast. Subscribe to us there. Rate and review. 5 stars is always this many stars. 5. 5 stars. And review. If you can leave a review somewhere, we'll read it on the air. And yeah, Jeff says AI in there too. Time to build my log cabin. Yep, time to go off the grid, guys. And on that note, we're gonna leave you. For my co-host Dustin, I'm Ryan. You've been watching or listening to No Credentials Required, where you don't need a press pass to talk sports. We are presented by Belly Up Sports in association with Godzilla Media. We'll be back next week at 7 p.m. Eastern. I was asked if I was going to talk about the Albany Empire tonight. I said nope, because I already talked about them this morning on Snowman in the Morning, which it's, if you want to catch that segment, which is my Coffee with McCarthy segment, you can watch it on the YouTube channel. It's from this morning. I put a certain former NFL football player and current majority owner on the hot seat today. So,
oh, there we go.
Gonna want to check it out. But in the meantime, we're going to leave you. We'll see you next week, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And you all enjoy yourself. Have fun watching whatever sports event you watch this week. Take care, everyone.